He said he loved me after we met on a dating app. And for months, I thought he was the one. But when I finally showed up at his house unannounced, I found out he was married with 2 kids and had been using me to escape his real life the entire time. It started like most modern love stories on my phone late at night under soft fairy lights I'd strung above my bed. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship, the kind that leaves you questioning your worth for months after it's over. So, when I downloaded the dating app again, I told myself I wasn't looking for anything serious. Just a few laughs, maybe someone to talk to on lonely nights. Nothing more. But then he messaged me. His name was Aiden. His profile was simple, no shirtless bathroom selfies or cheesy bios. Just a few well lit photos, a goofy smile, and a line that read, looking for something real in a world that's anything but. That caught me. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the way he used his words, but I replied. And from that first message, it was like we had known each other forever. We talked all night, and the next night, and the next. Within a week, we were FaceTiming every evening. He'd tell me about his job in marketing, how he worked remotely for a tech company, how he was saving up to move out of the city and into something quieter, something that didn't feel so fake all the time. He said people here only cared about image, not connection. I told him I knew exactly what he meant. He never rushed things. That was one of the things I liked about him. He wasn't trying to meet up right away like so many guys do. He said he wanted to really know me first. That felt rare. It felt special. He remembered little things, like how I liked my coffee with cinnamon or how I couldn't sleep without background noise. When I mentioned I was nervous about a job interview, he sent a playlist labeled, You've Got This. When I told him about my anxiety, he didn't flinch. He just said, You don't have to hide anything with me. I'm not going anywhere. And I believed him. We made it official 3 weeks after that first message. Even though we still hadn't met in person, I told my friends I was in a relationship. I wasn't ashamed of it. In fact, I felt proud, like I'd finally found someone who saw me for who I really was. Not just the filtered Instagram version, but the raw crying at 2 a.m., overthinking everything me. Aiden made me feel safe. And after everything I'd been through, that meant everything. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, things started to shift. First, it was the canceled plans. He said he was going to come see me one weekend, but work had piled up unexpectedly. Then the next weekend, his mom got sick. Then, his Wi-Fi went out right before a scheduled call. He always had a reason, and they always sounded plausible. I wanted to believe him. I chose to believe him. He sent me pictures from his day, selfies from the gym, his home office, his morning coffee. It all felt real. He even sent voice notes sometimes saying he missed me and couldn't wait to finally hold me. My best friend Emily wasn't convinced. You've been dating this guy for 3 months and he hasn't even come to visit you once? She asked, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. Don't you think that's a little weird? I told you, he's just dealing with a lot. I defended him. He's been honest about everything. Emily sighed. Has he though? Do you even know where he lives? Of course I did. Kind of. He said he was in the suburbs outside Seattle. I had the general area. But come to think of it, I didn't have an actual address. I never thought I needed it. We weren't planning on mailing letters. We were just talking, building something real. But her words stuck with me. I started noticing other things I had ignored. He never answered FaceTime calls if it was past a certain hour. He never gave me his Instagram handle, said he wasn't really on social media. He never talked about family. He was always vague about his schedule. And no matter how many times I asked to meet in person, he always had an excuse. Still, I held on, because letting go meant admitting I had fallen for a lie. And that was something I wasn't ready to do. Not yet. The first time I really questioned everything was on a Tuesday evening in March. We were texting about our weekend plans. He had said he might be free to visit, and I casually asked, Can I call you after dinner? He responded almost immediately, Sorry, can't tonight. Have a company thing over Zoom. Fair enough, I thought. But something tugged at me, a weird instinct I couldn't shake. So, I waited about 20 minutes, and then, on impulse, I called him anyway. It rang twice. Then it went straight to voicemail. I texted, "Hope everything's okay." No response. 3 hours later, he replied, "Sorry, babe, just saw this." Long meeting, and then my boss kept me talking forever. You know how it is. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe Emily had planted too many doubts in my mind. But I felt like I was being fed lines. Perfectly crafted explanations. Just enough detail to sound real, but never enough to verify. That night, I did something I had never done before. I reverse searched one of the photos he had sent me. It was the one of him holding his coffee mug, standing in front of what looked like a rustic kitchen with hanging plants and subway tile. He said it was his place. My heart dropped when I found it. The image came up on a real estate blog, a featured kitchen in a Seattle remodel. It wasn't his house. It wasn't even a house someone lived in anymore. It had been staged and sold 2 years ago. I felt sick. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the article, seeing more angles of the same room he claimed was his own. What else had he lied about? I wanted to confront him, but something in me whispered to wait, to get proof, to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. So, I played along. I continued texting him like nothing had changed. I still told him about my day, still laughed at his jokes, still said, "I love you," when he said it first. But in the background, I was gathering everything: screenshots, notes, inconsistencies. I started researching the area he claimed to live in. I even made a burner Instagram account to try to find him based on clues he'd let slip in our conversations. After hours of scrolling and narrowing down, I finally found something: a photo of him. But he wasn't alone. He was standing next to a woman and two kids. The caption read, "Family Hike Day. Love these three with my whole heart." It was posted on a private account, but I managed to see it through mutuals linked to his workplace, something he hadn't hidden entirely. The tags confirmed it: his real name, his wife's account, his children's names. He had a whole family. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My throat felt like it was closing. My vision blurred from tears I didn't even realize I was shedding. The man who told me I was his everything, who swore he was just waiting for the right moment to meet me, was married, with kids, and I'd been the escape plan. The worst part? A piece of me still wanted it to be a mistake, still hoped for an explanation, still longed for the version of him I had fallen in love with, the version that never really existed. But the truth was clear now, and I had to decide what to do next. I needed answers, and I was going to get them, even if it meant showing up at his front door. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every memory, every message, every moment that now felt tainted. The voice notes he sent me where he called me his light. The nights I cried on the phone, and he whispered, "I've got you." It all felt like emotional theft. He hadn't just lied, he'd stolen the version of me that still believed people were mostly good. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth in person. I knew where he worked. He'd slipped the company name early on, back when I thought he was just being open. From there, I had narrowed down the neighborhood he said he lived in. With a bit more digging, and thanks to one photo I had reverse image searched of a street mural behind him during a walk, I found it. His actual address, or at least, the one connected to his wife's Facebook profile. I packed an overnight bag, threw on a hoodie, and told Emily everything. "I'm coming with you," she said before I even finished. "No," I said quickly. "This is something I need to do alone." She looked like she wanted to argue, but then nodded slowly. "Okay, but if you don't text me every hour, I will call the police." Fair. The drive took nearly 4 hours. I rehearsed everything I wanted to say. Sometimes I imagined screaming. Other times, I imagined just standing there in silence, waiting for him to crack under the weight of his own lies. I had no idea what I'd actually do when I got there, but I knew I had to go. His neighborhood was beautiful, quiet, tree lined, the kind of place where kids ride their bikes and neighbors wave from their porches. Not at all the city life he claimed to hate. His house was a two-story colonial with navy shutters and a bright red door. I parked a few houses down and sat there for a full 10 minutes. I was shaking. What if his wife answered? What if his kids were home? What if I was about to shatter the lives of people who had done nothing wrong? But then I reminded myself, I didn't create this lie. He did. I finally got out of the car and walked up to the porch, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps. And then, there he was, in gym shorts, holding a water bottle, looking completely ordinary, like someone who hadn't just upended another person's world. The second he saw me, the blood drained from his face. He stepped out onto the porch and shut the door behind him fast. Debbie, what are you doing here? He stammered, eyes darting behind me like he was afraid someone had followed me. I could ask you the same thing, I said, my voice ice cold. Nice house. You didn't tell me you had a family in it. He swallowed hard, mouth opening and closing like he couldn't decide whether to lie or apologize. How did you find me? He finally said. I stared at him, furious and heartbroken all at once. Does it matter? He didn't respond. You lied to me for months, I said. You said you loved me. You said I was your person. And all this time, you were married? With kids? What the hell is wrong with you? He looked down at the porch floor, then rubbed his face like he was trying to erase what was happening. I never meant for it to go this far, he whispered. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to hurt me? I scoffed. Aiden, you built a whole fake life to pull me into. You chose to lie. You had a million chances to come clean. I know, he said, voice breaking. I know. And I'm sorry. I didn't want his apology. I wanted the truth. Why? I asked. Just, why did you do it? He exhaled slowly, leaning against the railing. I was unhappy. That's not an excuse. But things at home have been hard for a long time. I felt like I was invisible. And then I met you, and I don't know, you made me feel seen again. Like I mattered. I blinked, stunned by the audacity of it. So you used me to fill the emotional hole your marriage left behind? He nodded slowly. I felt like I'd been slapped. You're a coward, I said, trembling. You could have fixed your marriage. Or left. Or just been honest with me from the beginning. But instead, you played me. You made me think I was building something real when you were just escaping. He said nothing, and that silence was louder than any defense he could have given. The front door creaked open a little behind him. A child's voice, Daddy? Aiden turned fast, blocking the doorway with his body. Go back inside, sweetheart, he said gently. I'll be in a minute. He looked back at me, shame burning in his eyes. I stepped away from the porch. This is over, I said. And don't ever contact me again. If you do, I'll tell your wife everything, with screenshots. I walked away before he could say another word. I didn't look back, but my chest felt hollow, like something had been ripped out of me and smashed on that perfectly manicured lawn. When I got back to the car, I collapsed into tears. Not because I missed him, but because I missed the version of him I thought was real. And now, I had to figure out how to live with the aftermath of loving someone who never really existed. The drive home was a blur. The kind of numb, autopilot blur that makes you question whether anything you just went through was even real. The silence in the car felt heavier than the confrontation itself. There were no more lies. No more half-truths. Just me, alone, with everything he'd left behind in my heart. I didn't call Emily right away. I couldn't. I needed space to breathe, to cry, to unravel without anyone watching. When I finally walked into my apartment, the weight of what happened came crashing down all over again. I dropped my bag in the hallway, sat on the floor, and sobbed like a child. The kind of deep, ugly crying that made my ribs ache. How could I have been so blind? How did I let myself fall for someone who barely gave me anything real? But then again, he did give me something real. Or at least, it felt real. That's what made it so cruel. He didn't scam me for money. He didn't blackmail me or ghost me or use me for sex. No, he romanced me, made me feel seen, safe, loved, like I was his world. But I wasn't his world. I was his escape from it. That realization broke me. Emily showed up the next morning with muffins and ginger tea and eyes already filled with concern. I was 2 hours away from driving out there myself, she said, pulling me into a hug. Are you okay? I shook my head no, and for once I didn't try to pretend otherwise. I told her everything, every disgusting detail. How he looked genuinely panicked when I showed up. How he had the nerve to justify it all by saying I made him feel seen. How his child opened the door while we were standing there. Emily clenched her jaw. He's a narcissist. A selfish, manipulative narcissist. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I nodded slowly. The worst part is, I wanted to believe him. Even when things didn't add up, I kept making excuses because I didn't want to admit that I'd been lied to, again. You weren't stupid, she said gently. You were vulnerable. And he knew exactly how to find girls like you, girls who care. That's what predators do. I flinched at the word, but she wasn't wrong. He made me feel like I was the only thing that kept him going, I whispered. He said he loved me. Emily sighed. Love doesn't live in secrecy or lies. What he gave you wasn't love, it was need. Big difference. That hit me. I had mistaken attention for affection, validation for value. And I wasn't alone. I knew that. I started reading forums and watching videos from other women who had gone through the same thing, sometimes worse. Women who had been in entire relationships with men who had second lives, second families, second identities. The common thread in all their stories? These men knew how to say the right things to the right people at the right time. They weren't just liars. They were actors. And I had fallen for the performance. I started going to therapy 2 weeks later. It wasn't easy. Sitting in a room and unpacking not just what Aiden did, but why I let it go on for so long, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it helped. It helped me realize that I wasn't broken, just wounded. And wounds, even the deep ones, eventually heal. One afternoon in session, my therapist said something I'll never forget. You didn't fall in love with a man. You fell in love with a story. One he carefully constructed for you to live in with him. And now that you're out of that story, you get to write your own. That line lived in my head for days. Because she was right. I had been living in his fantasy, a fake world built to soothe his pain, not mine. And now I had the chance to create something real, something that didn't depend on someone else's lies to feel valid. I deleted all our messages, every screenshot, every photo. It took me hours, and I cried through most of it, but I did it. Then I blocked him everywhere. No part of me wanted to give him even a window back into my life. But I didn't stop there. With Emily's encouragement, I reported his dating profile. I even sent an anonymous email to his wife with all the screenshots, all the receipts, everything she needed to know. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it for her, for the truth. Because no woman deserves to live inside a lie, and no man deserves to get away with building one. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if she confronted him, if she left him, if their family imploded like mine nearly did. But I do know this. It wasn't my fault. None of it. And I wasn't going to carry shame that didn't belong to me. None of it. The days turned into weeks. And little by little, the version of me that had clung to Aiden's false promises started to fade. I began to rebuild. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't cinematic. It was small things, waking up without anxiety, taking long walks, journaling every night, saying no when I meant it, letting myself cry, but also letting myself laugh. There were nights where the loneliness felt unbearable, like the silence would swallow me whole. But then I'd remember, I was choosing this silence. I was choosing truth over the noise of someone else's lie. I got a job promotion around that time, something I had worked toward even during the chaos. It felt like proof that I wasn't broken, just bruised. And bruises fade. Scars may stay, but they don't own you. Emily and I grew even closer. She never once made me feel stupid or judged for what I'd gone through. That kind of loyalty, you don't take it for granted. Not after you've seen what betrayal really looks like. One night, as we sat on her couch eating popcorn and watching some cringy reality show, she looked at me and said, "You know, you're kind of a badass." I laughed through a mouthful of popcorn. "What makes you say that?" "You faced the person who hurt you, didn't let him gaslight you, took back your power, and are somehow still kind." That's rare. I didn't realize until then how much I needed to hear that. Not because I wanted validation, but because I had spent so long feeling used, like a prop in someone else's drama. Hearing that I had fought my way out of it reminded me of something important. I wasn't just a victim, I was a survivor. Months later, Aiden tried to contact me again. A new number. A vague text. "Hey, can we talk? I owe you more than just an apology." I stared at it for exactly 10 seconds before blocking the number. He didn't deserve even one more second of my life. But the thing is, I didn't hate him anymore. I pitied him. Because Aiden would always be chasing something: validation, attention, escape, and he'd never find peace until he faced the truth about himself. I used to wish he'd get what he deserved. But now, I just hope he gets the help he needs, far away from people like me. For a while, I kept my heart closed. I didn't trust easily. I avoided dating apps like the plague. But eventually, something shifted. Not overnight, and not with another guy, but with myself. I realized that healing wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about reclaiming what had always been mine: my worth. I started writing again, telling stories, not just about heartbreak, but about resilience. I submitted one of them to an online magazine, and to my complete shock, they published it. The response was overwhelming. Women wrote in saying they had gone through the exact same thing, that they felt seen, heard, understood. It made me realize something powerful. My story wasn't just pain, it was purpose. One message stood out. It simply read, "Thank you for putting into words what I didn't have the strength to say out loud. You made me feel less alone." That hit me like a wave, because that's what I had needed all along: to know I wasn't alone. And now, I was giving that to others. If you're listening to this and you've ever been lied to, if someone made you believe you were their world while hiding you from theirs, please hear me when I say, it was never your fault. Being open-hearted isn't a weakness, it's a superpower. And one day, someone will love you not because you fill a void, but because you are whole. Aiden taught me a lot. He taught me how good words can sound even when they're empty, how charm is just a mask for cowardice. And most importantly, he taught me never to settle for being someone's escape when I deserve to be someone's home. So here I am, months later, still healing, still growing, but no longer hiding. Because my story isn't about a man who lied. It's about a woman who rose. And that woman? She's me.